Hey everyone, I'm back and today we're going to be talking about Stanley Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange, and this movie came out in 1971, and this is one of my absolute favorite movies ever made, and I would say it's one of Kubrick's best movies, and unfortunately I have to do this. I'm so sorry if you were really looking forward to me talking about this movie and being, I'm won over, but I haven't seen it yet. I have no choice but to spoil the entire film, and the reason why I have to spoil the entire movie is because there's so much to talk about, and I do not feel comfortable talking about this movie in a spoiler-free review and me being able to win you over to watch this movie in a spoiler-free review. So, just getting that out there, so I'm just going to say spoilers from here on out. Sorry, everybody. If you really want to see it, all I'm going to say is that it's a character study, and it really explores our main character and what he goes from the beginning of the movie to the end of the movie, and it's a long journey from point A to point B, and it's almost 2.5 hours long, and it feels its length, but that's not a bad thing. And each scene needs to be in the movie. There's no scene that feels like thrown in just for the sake of having a longer movie. Each scene in this movie has a purpose towards it, and that is all you need to know. So, without further ado, spoilers. So, A Clockwork Orange. The movie is great from beginning to end for me. There's barely anything wrong with this movie. I think it's very engaging for me. I love our main character, even though he's not really a likable, sympathetic person in a traditional sense. I do find him interesting, and I love what he goes through, and it's very, very gripping, and it's a great character study, and there's a lot going on in this movie beyond what it's just showing our main character go through, and just the story that it's telling. And I'm going to talk about the structure of the film, because that's one of the biggest parts about it. And in the first half of the movie, it shows Alex being like a crime lord almost. He's the leader of this group of people who are rapists, and they're criminals, and they're bad people. But at the same time, they're very entertaining to watch because what they do is a lot of fun. They beat up other gangs, and although they don't do good things, the way the film is presented is very entertaining, to say the least. And this movie juggles different tones at once, and sometimes it's kind of fun, other times it's disturbing and almost scary at points. But I can't really pinpoint one tone that this movie is going for, because I feel as though the movie wanted to have a direction where so many things happen to our main character Alex, and he's going through jail, and he comes out of jail, and society treats him like crap, and there's so many tones in this movie, but I do not feel as though it hurts the movie at all. And if this movie didn't have as many tones as it did, then it would not be as good as it was, because the reason why this movie works so well for me is because it does feel like real life, and all the characters feel like real people, and I love how everything's presented and portrayed, and I love the music choices in the movie. And Kubrick always has classical music in his movies to make him feel timeless, and this movie does feel very timeless, and I love how the music is used in the movie. And I really, really would love to talk about our main character Alex and what he goes through, and how his character is portrayed, and how society looks at him, and our viewpoint on his character. In the first half of the movie, like I said, he's basically a bad person, and the way it's presented is that there's a lot of bad things that he comes across. The place he lives at is like all trashed up. The elevator doors are broken, and it's like a very trashed up place. It's like he lives in a garbage can almost. And there's lots of nudity, especially in the first half, and that can be distracting to a certain point with so much nudity in the movie. However, I think it has a purpose because in the first half, there's a lot of evil, and that's what our character is. He's evil, and doing the things that he does is not good. And as we get into the second half, and he's in prison, and he would like to get out, and there's like a way he can get out really quickly, and he's been in prison for 2 years, and there's a way he can get out, but it's like something that he doesn't even know what it is. He just all he knows is that it's an opportunity for him to get out of there now if he goes through this like procedure, and he takes it, and it was a genuine nightmare because as I was watching the movie, I was thinking, oh my god. It's like I felt like I was watching a horror movie. Like, flash forward to The Shining, like the most disturbing stuff in The Shining. It's like that's how it kind of was in this movie for those scenes. And there's not a lot in the movie, but you do feel as though this character has been going through a lot, and sees like basically a naked woman just standing in front of him, and that's like one of the tests of the movie, or like at the end of the procedure, sorry, and he tries to grab her breasts, and he's like an inch away from like actually touching them, but as soon as he's about to do that, he starts feeling sick, and he's about to throw up because that's what they did to him. Anything evil, it just makes him sick. Even the act of like wanting to punch someone, it like makes him sick, and he has to sit down, and it's pretty crazy. And eventually the movie somehow makes you feel sympathetic towards Alex, because you see that he's gone through a lot, and society eventually just treats him like crap. And you see this homeless guy that he like picked on at the beginning of the movie, and that same guy recognizes him, and he's like, I never forget a face. And all the homeless people living under the bridge just start beating the crap out of him. They take his stuff, and it's horrible. And even the guys who are part of his gang, they're now policemen, and they torture him, and they like attempt to drown him. And as they're sticking his head in this like like this tub of water, they're like beating him with a stick, and it was like, oh my god, it's horrible. Oh, and sorry, I got distracted, but going back to that nudity, there's a line in the first half, but there's barely anything in the second half, or at least from what I can remember. And I think that was supposed to highlight trying to be pure with Alex, and in the first half he was obviously not a good person. And as he's going to prison, attempt like getting cured, and after he's released, he's basically what is assumed to be a cured human being, that then he's not going to be thinking about sex or anything, or doing anything wrong, breaking the law. And I think that's what Kubrick really wanted to highlight in this movie, and I think that worked to the film's benefit. And I haven't even touched on the last 10 minutes of the movie, and that's where Alex is in a hospital because he tried to jump out of a window because he was just being tortured by the guy who had him trapped there. And the major thing that sticks out to me is in that last 10 minutes where he's in a hospital bed and recovering. During that entire section of the film, I kind of get the implication that he's not as the same as he was before he got to that point, but after he was released from the prison and procedure thing, he seems a little bit different, to say the least. And I think it's intentionally left up to interpretation as to whether or not you want to say, the procedure thing didn't work, or he's back to his old self as he was in the beginning of the film, or he's a mix of both, maybe. But one thing is for sure, he does seem a tad bit different to me in that last 15 minutes. That's all I'm gonna say. In terms of issues I have with the movie, there's really only one little thing in the movie, and that's kind of early on in the movie where Alex is driving a car and he has his gang buddies, friends, or whatever with him in the car with him, and he's supposed to be driving really fast, and there's like wind pushing up against characters, so it looks convincing, and I wasn't convinced that from that perspective that they were showing it. I wasn't convinced that they were actually driving, because Alex is kind of just turning the wheel left and right every once in a while, and he's turning like right when the road is going left. And I know that's a little minor thing, but it did stick out to me, and I don't take off points for it. It's just a tiny little thing that stood out to me as not great. And that's about all I have to say with A Clockwork Orange. It's an amazing movie, one of my favorites ever. There's so much to take in with this movie. I've seen this movie twice now, and it's a masterpiece, and I love the different tones in the movie. I love our main character and what he goes through. Even though he's not really a likable character, he's a very interesting character to me, and as I've said many times before, if it's not a likable character, you can make up for that by making him an interesting character, and that's what they did here, and I really loved that. The movie looks excellent, and I have like almost no complaints with this movie. Definitely check this movie out. If you watch through this whole video and you haven't seen the movie, still go see it. There's a lot to take in, and there's plenty to get out of it, and I'm sure there's stuff that I didn't even mention, but there's just so much to talk about whenever you're talking about a Kubrick movie. Personally, I feel as though it's best to spoil the whole thing, because there's just so much to talk about. The discussion is like endless. And with all that being said, I'm going to give A Clockwork Orange a 10 out of 10. Thank you for watching my videos as always. If you enjoyed this review, be sure to leave a like and comment down below what you thought of A Clockwork Orange down below. And my social media links, they will all be in the description down below, so follow me there. And last but not least, subscribe to be a part of Foley Nation. And I'll see you when I get my next review up, and that is going to be for True Lies. So look forward to that. But until I get that up, thank you for watching and have a great day.